Hi, I'm Graham Blackburn. This episode is all about panel saws. In a previous episode, we talked about hand saws, those saws that consist of just a blade and a handle. And I mentioned that there were two basic kinds. One for cutting with the grain, the rip saw, and we went into detail about that. And another kind called the crosscut saw, which is especially developed for cutting across the grain. Now, typically, these saws are quite long. You can see that this one here, for example, this is 28 inches long. The same thing with the crosscut saw. It has a slightly different heel, but it is also 26 inches long. If you don't have either of these saws yet, there's something else you can do that will do the job of both of them, and that's the panel saw. Panel saws are typically a whole lot shorter and easier to use in many ways than the dedicated rip saw or the dedicated crosscut saw, but they're typified by the fact that because they're only doing relatively small pieces of work, they all have crosscut teeth. So we're going to talk about how you tell a good one, and then how you set it up and how you use it. A good quality hand saw can typically be told, amongst other things, by how many nuts it has holding the handle on. For a full-size rip saw or crosscut saw, that means that if you have 4 or 5 nuts, you're pretty guaranteed that this was originally, whatever the state you may find it in at a flea market, was originally a top quality saw. Now, of course, panel saws being a little smaller, they only have 4 screws, but you'll notice that this particular handle has this nice little detail that's known as a lamb's tail. These handles may look a little antique and old-fashioned, but they're very cunningly designed so that 3 fingers fit in perfectly, and they're tilted so that whatever effort you put into sawing equalizes the downward motion that you need to saw and the forward motion that you need to saw. So let's see what it is that we have to do to make your panel saw, typically a whole lot shorter than the dedicated hand saw and crosscut saws, work. It's essentially the same 3 things that we mentioned before. The first thing is to make sure that all the teeth are the same height. Unless the saw has been badly abused over the years, then that probably is not too hard a thing to do. And the way we do it is either you can use a dedicated saw jointer, which is just a little metal device that holds a flat file, and you run the flat file backwards and forwards across the teeth until you have made a little shiny spot called the land on every single tooth. When every single tooth has a shiny spot, you know they're all the same size. If you don't have one of these, you're a woodworker. You can make one very easily. All you need is a square piece of wood into which you let a flat file so that you can put the wood against the saw and run this backwards and forwards. That's called jointing. Having jointed the saw in order to make sure that the teeth are all the same size, operation number 2 is simply to file the teeth so that they're sharp. On the rip saw, as we saw in the previous episode, we file the teeth perfectly perpendicular to the blade so that they represent a lot of little chisels. But with a crosscut saw that's designed primarily for cutting across the grain, we want to file the teeth at an angle so that each tooth represents a little knife. The easiest way to do that, until you get a little practice, is to clamp a piece of wood on which, using your sliding bevel and a protractor. You can see how I set the protractor to be at 60 degrees. And then I use that marking on here to draw these little lines. And these little lines give me a guide for the angle at which I have to hold the file. Two things to bear in mind. Not only must I hold the file at the angle marked on the wood so that I form a series of knives, but I also have to adjust the top so that it's a little less than perfectly parallel. That's called rake. And for all of you who have a bandsaw, I'm sure you're aware of the fact that the steeper the rake of a blade, that's the front edge of a tooth, the more aggressive is the cut. The less steep, the longer it takes to saw, but the smoother the cut. But for a panel saw, 60 degrees is just about perfect. So with the saw in the saw vise and the guide with your 60-degree marks there, you place the file in the gullet of the first tooth that's facing towards you on this side. And you simply, holding it just so that the front edge is almost vertical, you file until you've removed half of the shiny spot. Then you miss a tooth and you go to the next one, do the same thing. And you do that all the way down the saw. This may take you 10 minutes or so, but you don't have to do this very often, so it's worth doing it. When you've filed the entire length of the saw, now turn the saw around. Whoops. Turn the saw around in the other end of the vise. Clamp it. And now, putting this on to give you extra guide again, you now start on the other tooth and making sure that you've got the file matching the angles that you've drawn on the wood. You file the alternate teeth, and you do that as many times as is necessary until you've removed the last of the shiny spots. At this point, you should have a saw, all of whose teeth are approximately the same height, although some woodworkers like to have a slight crown in their saw, but that's not terribly important. And they're all the same height and they're all equally sharp. There remains only one other thing to do, and that is a question of bending alternate teeth out to the side so that if you looked at the saw from the end, you'd see this. In fact, some people recommend that you bend the teeth so that you can actually run a needle down between the teeth here. That's called setting the teeth. When we showed how to set the teeth on a rip saw, we used one of these. This is an old-fashioned tool called a saw rest. Nowadays, it's a little more convenient to use a saw setting guide. Let me tell you something about this. The way that you measure the size of a saw is to count the number of teeth per inch. So if we hold this here, starting at any tooth, and we count the number of teeth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that means there are 7 teeth to the inch. And that figure is invariably stamped on the heel of the blade in terms, and it's known as the TPI, 7 TPI. So with one of these, if you look closely, you'll see that there's a little anvil against which the pusher shoves. And the anvil is marked with a series of numbers that correspond to the teeth per inch. So in this case, I've set the anvil to 7 because this is a 7 TPI saw. Now all I have to do is to start at either end, but do all the teeth in one side first and then reverse it. I put this over, and on the tooth that I want bent this way, I squeeze this until the tooth goes over. Missing a tooth, I do the same thing. Missing another tooth, I do the same thing. And that way I know that the teeth are all bent over in exactly the same way. When I've done one side, now I do it from the other side. One last thing before you actually start to use the saw is to make sure that the handle is firmly fixed to the blade. Most of these nuts have a bolt that comes through from the other side, so you need to find a screwdriver that you can file the middle of it away so that you can put this over the saw nut and make sure that that's really nice and tight. The point of doing this is so that you don't waste any effort in using the saw and having the handle rock backwards and forwards on the blade. And one more we'll do here. Good. Now we're ready to check it out and see how it works. So let's look at how we cross-cut a piece of wood. So having jointed, sharpened, and set our saw, let's see how we actually use it. I'm going to saw the end of a piece of wood off. Now I'm using a pencil here so that you can see more clearly where I'm going to saw. In real life, I would much prefer to use a knife than a pencil mark. But in either event, the first thing to do is not what a lot of beginners do, which is immediately to start trying to saw, because that's inefficient and dangerous. The first thing you want to do is to hold your saw on the waist side of the line and using your thumb against the saw so that it can't jump out and do any damage, take a few strokes backwards. Right? It often helps to put a knee on the work. You only have to do this a few times until you've got a curve deep enough to be able to start sawing forward. Now, notice when I'm doing this that I keep my thumb here so that the saw can't jump out and do any damage. And notice how I'm positioned so that I'm directly over the saw and I can see equally both sides of the blade. That helps guarantee that the cut I'm making is perfectly vertical. And lastly, notice that I'm using the entire length of the saw. A lot of people end up sawing only using the middle, but there are teeth all the way from the heel to the toe, so use the entire length. And one last piece of advice is not to push. The saw itself is perfectly straight and perfectly flat and wants to saw in a straight line. If you push, you're more than likely to cause the saw to bind in the wood, and that's very inefficient. So all you do is with 3 fingers and a thumb to prevent any unexpected damage, using the entire length of the saw down on the waist side of your line. When you get close to the end, it's often good practice to hold the end of the piece that's sawing off so that the last few strokes don't break off the end of the wood, but you get a nice clean cut. That's how you use a panel saw. In a pinch, the panel saw can be used if you don't have a rip saw or a crosscut saw. If you like that and found that helpful, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and come back for the next episode, and we'll talk more about some of these traditional woodworking hand tools. Thank you.